All right, 351, Sikkim 365 Radio, and also 365 Sports on YouTube. We're now joined by Greg Barnes, Inside Carolina. Has been doing that for a long time. Of course, North Carolina with Sam Howell, Mac Brown, head coach, and the Tar Heels ranked inside the top 10. A lot of expectations for them. And Greg, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Expectations are very, very high. Is it something that people are thrilled with or nervous about?
I think people are thrilled about it. I think the fact that, it's been since 1997, Mac's last year in Chapel Hill, that expectations have really been this high, other than that 2010 year that was derailed by the NCAA investigation. And so I think fans, as you know, fans tend to get a little bit out in front of their skis, and so they're talking about college football playoffs. I think Mac Brown would be happy with an appearance in the ACC championship game, but everybody's excited about it for sure. I don't think there's any nerves. They've been waiting for a long time for this.
Well, Greg, their schedule lines up for them pretty well, save for, and look, I know Florida State going into the year is not somebody that most teams would be scared of, but they did beat them last year, and Mike Norvell's in year 2, but FSU, Miami, and Notre Dame is a 3-game stretch with a bye week between Miami and Notre Dame. If they can get through that with just one loss, especially if that happens to be to Notre Dame, you would put them in a pretty good spot to match up well against Clemson, wouldn't you?
Yeah, for sure. I think the fact that they know what they have with Sam Howell, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They really like what they have defensively with so many guys coming back and kind of an influx of talent. So they're worried about the Virginia Tech game just because it's the first game of the year. It's on the road. This team did not play in front of a big crowd last year. That's going to be a unique dynamic there. But you get through that when you kind of work into the schedule. And, yeah, I don't think there's any question. You talk about Miami, you talk about Notre Dame. North Carolina's season will be defined by those two games. Notre Dame, of course, is big because they're going to be probably a top 10 team. Miami will probably decide the Coastal Division Championship. If they can beat Miami, that would pave the way for them to be able to play Clemson, which is, of course, what everybody wants.
All right, you know the way the landscape of college football 3 weeks ago yesterday kind of flipped on its head a little bit with the story about Texas and Oklahoma, the SEC. And, of course, the ACC's got this grant of rights forever, and they seem to be okay, right? And with Clemson and what North Carolina, Miami, Florida State, whatever else. But what was the reaction? Was there much of a reaction in where you are in the Carolinas?
Yeah, there is. I think it's probably the same for most non-SEC schools around the country. It's like, where does this go? And I think the grant of rights bill that the ACC has is solid. The issue is that the ACC is only paying out roughly $32 million to its schools, which pales in comparison to what the SEC has now. Of course, what they will get once Oklahoma and Texas join. It also pales compared to what the Big Ten has. So there's a lot of concern about the ACC really losing positioning. The only way you change that, of course, is by bringing Notre Dame into the mix. I don't think Notre Dame's ready to give up their independence with football. And so they're kind of in a holding pattern right now. But North Carolina does feel as though they have a national brand, especially because of basketball. And they think if things really go sideways, that they will have the opportunity to make a move if they have to.
Do you think that scheduling alliance helps them, though? I mean, that's what I wonder about it. I mean, it seems like a cool idea, but does it help the ACC get more money when the other, I don't know what the Pac-12, how it helps them, but the Big Ten already has that money. Like, it seems to me like they'd be helping the Big Ten get more money and maybe not necessarily themselves.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the scheduling alliance deal, it makes sense just from a non-conference opponent perspective. You're kind of locking in some really good games. How much does that help their bottom line, though, in terms of conference affiliation? I'm kind of with you. I don't know that it helps that much. The Big Ten is set. Now, I think they're good to go. Their schools are bringing in $20 million more a year than what the ACC is. And it's crazy to think that a school like Rutgers, no offense to Rutgers, but that program is bringing in about 20 more a year than North Carolina is or Clemson is, right? But that's kind of the dynamics right now. So while the alliance is a good talking point, and I think it at least shows they're thinking about some other options, unless you get the ESPN deal beefed up, I think the ACC is going to be struggling to kind of gain ground.
All right, so Mack Brown had been there before, done a nice job, went to Texas. We know the story there. Then things didn't end as well, and he eventually gets that retirement, broadcasting, and eventually shows up in North Carolina. Has he done this faster than even the most optimistic people?
That's a great question. Probably so. I talked to Mac about this a couple weeks ago, and he said, Sam Howell's a big part of it. To be able to step into a situation where you had a kid who wanted to come to North Carolina and just happened to be a guy that has been as good as he is, that's a big part of the equation. The other thing is Mac has been going for 20 years when he came back, but a lot of the same people, booster-wise, were around the program. And so those relationships started back up immediately. And the same held true with a lot of the high schools. So he was able to come in and in really short order rebuild those relationships, and it just allowed him to take off recruiting-wise. But without a guy like Sam Howell, there's no way they get to a bowl game their first year. You don't know how things turn out last year. So having a guy of that caliber has really allowed Mac to take a couple of steps forward quicker than probably anybody would have imagined.
So does he have another Sam Howell in the offing in his recruiting barrel?
It's a great question. You never really know how these guys turn out, but the fact that Drake May, remember Luke May from the basketball team?
Yep.
Drake May's his younger brother. His dad played football for North Carolina. He was a 5-star recruit last year. He actually committed to Alabama. North Carolina got him to switch his commitment to Carolina. They really like what he's done. He'll probably get to play a good bit this year as a true freshman in mop-up duty. They think he's really in position to step in, and they hope he can be as good as Sam, as good as Sam is. We'll have to wait and see. But they really like what he's able to bring to the table.
How much have you? And with Mac was there. Were you there when he was there the first time, Greg?
I was, yeah.
Okay, so his personality. He can get you. We've had him on this show. Mm-hmm. He's still a friend of this show as well. Is he the same person as you remember 20? Well, it would have been longer than that ago.
Pretty much, I would say the thing that has changed with Mac, when he got there in the later stages of Texas, he wasn't enjoying it quite as much because he had such high demands. And I think being away from the field and being a TV analyst for 5 years really allowed him to kind of get back into the groove of, look, we're doing this to help kids. We're doing this to have fun and win games. It's not just about wins and losses. And he still admits it's challenging in that regard. I think any great coach will say that. But he's just having a much better time. He's not as stressed as he used to be. He's delegating a little bit more. I think he understands this is his last stop. He understands there's capabilities here because he knows what North Carolina is about. And so I think he's just kind of enjoying the ride, but he's still clearly intense. You have to be to have success at this level.
It's interesting. His legacy has pretty much already been written.
Yeah.
But now he has a chance to add an extra chapter that might not have even been there.
Yeah. And for Mac, that was unfortunate is he fed fans a drug that's not impossible to get at Texas or impossible to get anywhere, but it's really hard to find. And then they're just clamoring at the door to please let us have that drug again. And that was the national championship. And that's why it didn't work out for him at Texas is he could never recreate that feeling. And it's really hard for people to do not named Nick Saban.
For sure. And I think the thing in North Carolina is they've won more than 9 games once since 1997 when he left. And so the fact that North Carolina won 8 games last year, the fan base celebrated him like none other. And you don't get that at Texas if you win 8 games. So I think that he's already kind of been lifted up to this football icon, this Hall of Famer. He knows everybody around Chapel Hill loves him, and I think that's a big part of it. The other aspect, too, is the last 7 years, not counting last year, but the last 7 years of division play in the ACC, there have been 7 different winners of the Coastal Division. Every single team in the division has won, which speaks to the lack of, really speaks to parity, but speaks to the lack of a dominant power. Clemson's winning everything on the Atlantic side. Nobody's doing that on the Coastal. So Mac understands that, and he's like, look, as long as we have some good years, we can get to the ACC championship game more often than not. And then as long as you have that opportunity, then you get a chance to play for bigger and better things.
Yeah, no question. Hey, how has the first few weeks, or how have the first few weeks with Hubert Davis gone? Just give us an update on North Carolina men's basketball.
Well, they've gone well in terms of recruiting. That was kind of the big thing for him. Is that he knew that Roy was going to lead him a good team. He's got some really good pieces coming back this year with Caleb Love and Armando Bacot. Those are guys you can build around. But he's been able to sign, or at least get commitments from five-star guys, one being a point guard, Seth Trimble, and then another being an athletic big. So we have to wait and see exactly how he changes his scheme. He wants to have a little bit more spacing with that four-man, which is something Roy Williams was never a fan of. Then we also have to see exactly what he can do as a coach. I mean, he's never coached before. He's been an assistant to Roy. That's it. So there's going to be some challenges for him. But he had to hit the ground running, recruiting-wise, and he's been able to do that thus far.
All right, thank you, Greg. Appreciate your time. That's Greg Barnes, Inside Carolina, with us on North Carolina. Had a little note in basketball with Baylor coming off the national championship in North Carolina of the change. How about the change with Roy Williams out, Hubert Davis in, and eventually Duke as well, right? I mean, college basketball has lost some mega names, and with more to come as well. When we come back, Dave Wilson, national writer for ESPN.com. He is next on Sikkim 365 Radio.